Come on in and see my collection.
Hello, YouTube. Welcome to another edition of Star Wars Collections and Displays. As always, I am Jack. With me, I have Jim. How you doing tonight, Jim?
Great, great, great.
And we have a very special collector with us. Mr. Collector, if you can, go ahead and state your name, where are you zooming in from, and a little bit about your collection.
Hi there, everybody. My name's Dennis Smith. I'm from South Bend, Indiana, home of Notre Dame, where they're playing Navy right now, where my girlfriend is at and not being here, so she doesn't have to deal with this stuff. But my collection stuff is I started with Star Wars. I had a bunch of Star Wars stuff and a bunch of G.I. Joe stuff when I was a kid, and in my 20s, I all sold it. And then I think it was like starting in 2008, I started buying mocks, mint on card figures, because I always thought it was really cool to see what you had in the packaging. And most of my collection has mocks. I do have loose figures and graded figures, but as you look at my collection, you'll know like mocks are my thing. I just think it's really cool to walk in, and when you're setting up a collection, you want to make it look like it's kind of like it is like a toy store where you're actually going in a toy store and wanting to pick something off the shelf. And I like to think that I've done that. And when people see it, they kind of see where my vision is with that.
Very nice.
Yeah, I'm actually looking for a sign, a toy store sign on eBay or Amazon that I can kind of hang in the hallway. They've got a regular plastic one that says toys, but I want something a little more Christmassy, I would think, more jingle bellish. I don't know what the word would be, but something that is a lot more embellished with stuff. But
I,
yes, no.
if you wanted, I could have put a Santa right behind me and it would have just seemed like Christmas.
It's still November. Let's wait until after Thanksgiving for
Yeah,
them.
So let's
that's
kind
what I
of
like to do.
let's dive right into it. What is it that you're actually collecting? You mentioned mint on card, but maybe action figures, vehicles, helmets, lightsabers, comics?
Comics, no. I have a small comic collection. It's not my niche. It's action vehicles. It's our vehicles, action figures, ships. I have a big Star Trek. I'm a big Star Trek fan, so I really got into Eagle Moss, which they're out of business now. But Eagle Moss made these great starships that were probably about 3 inches wide and very detailed. And I
Wow.
really got into them, and then they went out of business. So you can't find them anymore, which is you can, but they're
And
expensive
they're
on
on
eBay.
those little tiny stands in
Yeah,
the ship.
yeah,
Okay.
they have the
Okay.
black
Yeah,
base
yeah.
and the little clear plastic stand, and you just kind of just set them up on there.
Right, right, right.
You know,
Cool.
Jim, I think this is the first time we've talked to someone that collects both Star Wars and Star Trek. I don't think we've ever had a Trekkie on here before.
No, and I did make a few notes about some questions, so we're going to dive into the Star Trek thing, as well as kind of inquire into your G.I. Joe aspect as well.
G.I. Joe too. Yes,
Oh
absolutely.
yeah, that started. That's a recent thing, and I found somebody that had a huge sealed box collection of vehicles, and I bought them up. So most of the stuff you'll see in the closet is sealed. It's never been opened.
Wow.
Yeah,
Very
I
cool.
that is one of the notes I made on here. You had referred to something that was still sealed, and I made a note about the word sealed. I mean, what's considered sealed? I mean, you cut the tape and opened it up and took it out, or the original tape is still there.
Original tape. Like the tape has, if the tape isn't there, it's open. It's open complete, which is not bad. I mean, it's still pretty rare, but when you find a piece where you still have the original manufacturer's tape and you know that nobody's gotten in there,
Yeah.
it's just that's kind of stuff that I like, is stuff that's never been touched before.
I'm curious though, what is the urge to want to open it up versus no, you don't touch that?
For me, like I say, it's like wanting to create a room or a collection that's like a toy store. So you go in and you're like, oh my God, I remember walking into the Toys R Us, seeing that figure and pulling it off the shelf, and I can see it right there again. And it's just really a special feeling for me as a collector to find those kind of pieces.
So with all those action figures and vehicles, you have your what, 3 3/4 inch?
Yeah, three. Yeah, I mean that's my favorite kind. That's what I played with as a kid. I mean, there's different sizes. Like I have an alien collection. Of course, those figures are bigger. They're more like 5 6 inches. But that was just kind of an obsession I had for about 6 months was to get all that alien stuff. But mostly it's like, like 90% of my stuff is just like vintage stuff because that's kind of what I really like.
Okay, all right. Any particular series or movie that you enjoy following?
Well, of course, I'm a Star Trek fan. So, I mean, I'll watch all the series and the Star Trek, and I do like watching the Disney Plus shows. The Disney Plus Star Wars shows. I mean, I'm one of the few people that do. I love The Mandalorian. I like Boba Fett. I loved Andor. I thought that was a great show. Not so much The Acolyte. I just thought it was badly written. But for most of the time, I'll try if it's a Star Wars store, a Star Wars movie or a movie or show or a Star Trek movie or show. I'll give it a chance. I don't like it all, but it's something that comes up that I really like.
Okay, so there was a lot of different bits of information kind of melted all together in there.
Yeah.
Let me kind of try to be a little more specific in regards to the story. There's a lot of people that go with the original first three episodes or episodes four, five, and six. Then there are those who like the prequels, and then those who like the three that followed after that. And then totally separate from that, you can jump over into the Star Trek side of it, of which the appropriate question would be, oh, are we talking original Star Trek with Captain Kirk, or are we talking Next Generation with Jean-Luc Picard?
I grew up because my dad and my brother always watched the original series. So I always watched the movies with them. But for me, it's Next Generation, Deep Space Nine. That's when I really got into Star Trek myself and went to go find time to go watch the show, make time. Because back then, it was on at 6:30 in the afternoon on Saturday. You had no choice. You had to go and make time to watch it then. And with Deep Space Nine, it was the first serialized show that was really ever made. So if you missed a couple episodes, you were kind of lost in what was going on.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. It used to be shows were just, had a beginning, middle, and end in the show. It wrapped up, and then that Star Trek series, it was like, okay, the whole show was like over the whole season. The story arc
Yeah.
was over the whole season. Yeah.
And that's one of the things too. Like Deep Space Nine didn't become really popular until streaming because people could find time to sit down and watch it from the beginning, season one, all the way to the end of season seven.
Yeah.
And now it's one of the more popular Star Trek series there is because because of streaming, they have time to catch up and watch everything that they missed.
So
Interesting.
as
Interesting.
far as what you're collecting then, Dennis, is that you only collect the Deep Space Nine and the Next Generation stuff?
No, I have a little bit of everything. In one of the rooms, I have autographed plaques. I have the complete autographed crew of
Oh,
the original crew, the Next Generation crew, and the Voyager crew.
wow. Okay. And then on the
Which
Star
I
Wars
think is
side,
pretty unusual to have all those particular pieces because it's easy to find one or two names on a thing, but to have them all on
oh,
one piece, I mean, that's one that I'll never get rid of.
right. That's really cool. So it's one piece that has all the actors from all those three different shows. It's not three different pieces.
It's three different pieces,
It is.
which
Okay.
which which is both oriented for that show, and then they have the
The whole cast.
the picture where everyone's autographed that picture.
Wow, that's impressive. And on the Star Wars side of things, are you collecting mainly original trilogy stuff? Or are you doing one, two, three? What is your focus on the collection side?
For me, it's all the 4, 5, 6, the original
Okay.
trilogy, because that's what I grew up watching. I mean, I don't dislike the prequels. I've learned to like the prequels a lot now, mainly because I saw the sequels and I just really didn't like them. So then I went back to the prequels and I'm like, okay, these are
Pretty
actually
good.
pretty good.
Right. That's funny you say that. I've always been a prequel defender. Even when they first came out, I said, maybe the execution wasn't great. Some of the acting was a little wooden or, not great. But the lore, the
Yeah.
story and what it kind of brought into Star Wars and some of the characters it brought into Star Wars, I always defended that all the way back from 1999. So I'm so happy that the prequels have finally caught up with people.
Yeah. And the one thing about the prequels, you'll never find a better lightsaber duels. The prequels have it. I mean, they're the best lightsaber battles in all of Star Wars. That'll never be taken away.
I mean, the pod racing scene is amazing. I think just the turn of Anakin Skywalker is really well done. Being able to have Darth Maul as a character, if there was no prequels, there's no Darth Maul. So there's a plenty of good that came out of the prequels, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's the trilogy as far as the Star Wars side. There's the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine as far as the Star Trek side of it. In regards to the GI Joe side of it, which series or year is it that you're collecting?
No, I have a little bit in the later stuff, but 84 to 87 was that's when like 84 to 88 is when I really that's when I collected. It's like the Roblox, General Hawks, Snake Eyes, Cobra Commanders, like those original figures that came out.
Right.
Not so much 82, 83, like the ones with the stiff arms that just came out. I mean, I don't think they look very good. But then once they're in their like third season of figures, they started really articulating well and they really looked individual and unique and they really were much more fun to play with back then.
And
In
correct me if I'm wrong, that's the A Real American Hero
Yeah,
series.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because Jim is a collector of GI Joe as well, but his figures are like 12 inches
they're
tall.
from the 60s.
The
Okay.
60s, yeah, the 12-inch. My brother had those when he was a kid. That's what he played with.
Wow.
And he had them for a long time. He eventually sold them. But for me, if I don't have like a reference to it personally, I really don't want it in my collection because to me, it's like being able to remember your past. If it's something you didn't have, it's kind of like, you just have it to have it. And with my collection, when you go through it, it's like there's like to have a purpose of it or a flow to it where it looks like it naturally flows from one thing to the next.
Hmm. Very
Um,
interesting.
Collectively, the number of items you have, which in general would be again the Star Wars, the Star Trek, and the GI Joe with some kind of a peripheral little variations on the side of that. Collectively, what do you think you have?
Well, how many pieces? Oh Lord, I don't even know. To be honest, I have I with figures, I would have to count, but I know I've got roughly 67, 70 Star Wars mocks,
Wow.
roughly 30, 40 GI Joe mocks,
Okay.
roughly 20, 25 sealed vehicles from GI Joe. Not many sealed Star Wars vehicles, but I have like the major ones that came out, like the major vehicles that you would want, like the X-wing, the Imperial shuttle, the AT-AT, the ATST, that kind of stuff, and most of the Tie fighters.
Wow. All right. I mean, just in my head, I'm counting at least 200, but it could be higher than that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. When you guys see the video, you'll have to count for me to let me know.
I'll ask this a few different ways, but I'll start with the Star Wars side of it. What was it about Star Wars that made you want to collect the Star Wars figures? And you said this is almost really like your second collection. So go back all the way to the beginning. Why was Star Wars such an important part of your life?
It's a funny story. And originally when Star Wars came out, they re-released it in like 80. If I believe the New Hope they released, and I was like 4 years old,
Mhm.
and I was terrified of Star Wars at that age. Like my parents, like I asked my parents to leave the theater, and this is what they're telling me because I don't kind of remember it, but they keep bringing it up. But then we went to the store. I wanted to collect Star Wars figures because they look cool, and they looked at me and they said, "You cannot buy. We will not buy you a Star Wars figure until you see Empire Strikes Back and sit all the way through it." Because they were worried I was scared of the first one.
Right.
And then by that it was like 81, 82. I was like 6 or 7. And that was like the age to go see Star Wars.
I
And that's
see.
when most kids are hooked on it. And that's when automatically that Christmas the toys start coming in. And that's when the real passion started for that. And for GI Joe, my brother bought those for me for Christmas because he wanted, he liked, military toys. So he's the one that got me into collecting GI Joe when I was a kid too.
Got it. So Star Wars first, then the GI Joe came in, and then obviously eventually some of the Star Trek stuff came in.
Yeah, Star Trek was much later. When I was more like 13, 14, and I was going to my first Star Trek conventions, and like you got to see all the memorabilia that they came out with, that kind of stuff. So that was much later. I also at that age collected some Transformers,
Mhm.
not a lot, but just a little because they were always much more expensive than buying a 3 and 3/4 inch figure. So I had a light collection, and I only have 2 pieces of the Transformers now. I have Megatron in the box and Skylinks.
Oh wow.
which I got them because they were the two figures I wanted that I could never get as a kid.
I'll put you on the spot for a second here. If you had to pick one between Star Trek and Star Wars, you had to drop the other one. Which one are you dropping? Which one are you keeping?
Oh, collecting Star Wars, but watching would be Star Trek. I
Interesting.
think Star Trek it's more of a dramatic series. I just it's a they're two different shows. They're two different experiences. They're sci-fi, but they're in my mind they're two completely different things. And I don't like when people compare them because the lore, the technology, the stories, they're just completely different.
Sure.
On the technology end of it, the one thing, and I enjoyed all of the Star Trek versions. I never really got into the Deep Space Nine, and really not much beyond that. But the Next Generation, the thing that always stood out to me with Next Generation was the level of video quality. It was like over the top. And I would
Yeah,
stand there on my HD TV in the living room. And I remember one night watching a Star Trek, and I thought, it's just crystal clear. And I just noticed that that show was really made efforts from a high definition standpoint, I think.
yeah. They changed how they made television in a lot of ways visually. I mean, they were one of the first. They were one of the first shows to like Next Generation to spend $1 million an episode.
Wow.
And in '87, that was unheard of to spend $1 million on a TV episode, one TV episode.
Right.
But they spent the money well. You know, they put time in building. You know, they had great model makers. They had great special effects guys when they did the movies. They went to IML, Industrial Light and Magic, because they knew where to go and they knew where to get the visuals, and then they made sure they did it right, so it didn't look like a Babylon 5 where everything looked computer generated and not real.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yep. No, it was always a very high quality visual show. Um, so you this collection you got as a kid that you gathered items for from over Christmas and such. You said you were about 20 years old. You had to sell it or sold it.
Yeah, it was right after college because I couldn't get a job yet. So I sold it all, and most of it, and 99, it was all loose stuff. I mean, I had a few boxes of stuff, stuff that still had the boxes. So I don't miss it necessarily. I mean, I have an attachment to it, but when I started again, it was like starting me trying to start a collection that people would actually really enjoy looking at, and something where if I wanted to go in and relax, I could just look at stuff and just see, the care that was put into it.
And the second wave of collecting began when?
2008, because it was the year of the recession. And I had just started getting into eBay at that time. And figures were so cheap back then. You could get Star Wars Mox for $20. You could get Joe Mox. Joe Mox were a little bit more expensive, but I remember the most expensive figure I bought then, and I thought I was crazy, is I spent $250 on a Snake Eyes version 2 mock. And I thought I was crazy. And now I look at the prices that I still have, and that thing's worth like $3,000 to $5,000 now. And
Wow.
I'm like, how does something like that increase in value so much over, yeah, it's almost 20 years now, but still that's a big jump. And the market was so low then. And then I gave up a little bit because I got a divorce and I bought a new house. I bought a house. So then I had to do what everybody else does, is like fix up your house, learn how to live in your house by yourself. And then once I was moved in a while and I already had my original stuff up, then I starting to realize that Facebook had auctions and shows and stuff. And it kind of got that passion back in me. So slowly, and this is probably about 2 or 3 years ago, that's kind of when I really got into getting some of the big stuff that I always wish I would have had earlier, but just didn't, have the freedom to do it. And then it just kind of exploded into this thing that you see in front of you.
So the next question we would typically ask would be the motivation. And if I can use the two different waves of collecting, I assume the first wave was memorabilia, recapturing what you saw as a child. And then the second wave also kind of begins to sound like trying to once again recapture that stuff from childhood.
Yeah, and it's also it's just like a passion. It's something that I'm interested in. I mean, everybody has interests, and this just captivates me. You know, if I can just sit back and look at stuff. And the one wonderful thing about like Facebook and joining Facebook groups, especially Facebook groups that are on vintage toys or specific vintage toys, is you can tell story. Even I have numerous friends that I talk to at least once a week from these groups that we just tell stories, and I build friendships over this, and we tell stories, and we'd share what our collections are, and share pictures and just tell what's going on in our lives, like personal stories. So it's kind of built another level of just being personal and having other people to talk to, and it's a community that's very nice and very open, and willing to discuss anything about what we might think as collectors other people would think is weird, but yet we think it's perfectly normal, and we like to just tell stories about what we found or what we sold, or what got away at the last second, and it's fun.
100%. I agree. Some of my favorite conversations are Star Wars conversations, and the nerdier, the geekier it gets, the funner those, the more fun that those conversations are. I just want to go back really quick. When you sold your original collection when you were in your early 20s, how did you sell that? Because, I don't think eBay was around at that point. What was your method?
um i sold um I sold to what was it? It was a comic book store,
Oh,
and comic book store that had vintage toys, and I sold like half of that lot, and then it was a couple when eBay just first started. That's when I sold the rest of it. So I did have experience selling on eBay too,
okay. Very
and
cool.
and now I understand why people do their own auctions, their own shows, because when you sell on eBay, they take such a big chunk out of what you spent all this time taking photos of and posting and all this other stuff, is because they take 25% and PayPal takes their percent, and then you realize that you're not making the kind of money you thought you would when you're selling on eBay.
Gotcha.
I buy a lot of stuff off eBay, and the thing that always mystifies me is the people who say make offer. And I think to myself, there's only one reason they're saying make offer. That's they already increased the price beyond what they were really wanting to ask for.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, it's a little bit of an insult, especially if you don't make an offer. But at the end of the day, once you make a deal and strike a deal and go through there, I think to myself, what money is left for the guy who sold it? I mean, why are
Yeah.
you actually in this business? Are you just getting rid of stuff and that's the whole point? Or are you trying to make money, or just not realize that you're spinning your wheels?
Yeah, it's back then you could make money because it was your own stuff. It's stuff that you paid pennies on the dollar for. So if you buy a figure for $3 and you sell it for 20, you're making money on that. But I found it very difficult, and I tried to like buy stuff and then sell it on eBay, but the profit margin was so thin at the end of the day, it just really wasn't worth it.
Hmm.
And if you're not pumping sales all the time, their monthly fee gets you for doing nothing. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not criticizing them. It's a good thing. They've done great things for that aspect of commercialism or selling stuff. And there's nothing, in my opinion, that could compare to them. So hats off to them. Um, in your collection, I saw a number of items that were graded, or at the
Yes.
very least in acrylic boxes.
Yeah, I have most of the Star Wars the Empire figures, like the Galactic Empire, like Stormtrooper and Snowtrooper and Imperial Commander. Those I bought those ungraded because I think they just look nice. Other than that, I have a few Joe pieces that are graded. I didn't look to buy Joe pieces that were graded. They just kind of popped up, and I'm like, that's a good deal, so I'm going to grab them.
Interesting. And is there anything specific? I'm actually I have a graded collection too. This is my loose collection behind me, but I also have a graded collection of the original 100 Star Wars figures, and I like having both, so that way you can kind of see the figures, feel the figures if you want to. But at the same time, if people come over, I kind of more like to show them the ones that are in the acrylic. Why do you like the graded figures?
I like them because, well, because you know what the quality is of them, because these AFA is very good at what they do, and they know what they're doing, and they set a standard for what something's supposed to be. So when you see it, you know what you're getting. And then like in the acrylic, they're so protected. It's like a lot of my figures in the background are in the plastic cases. And they're secure and they're safe. But yeah, I mean, they would all be a lot better in acrylic. I couldn't hang them on the wall, of course, but they would be safer. Um, but it's neat. Like I have a piece. It's a loose piece of it's a Rebel Commander and like the Rebel Endor attack vehicle, and it's in the same spot, and it's graded 90, so it's a really nice piece. And I'm like, that is probably like the one of the few, if only 90 grade objects I'll ever have in my life. And I like it because it's a combination of two different things that are in such good grade that it ended up being a 90.
That's amazing. You're talking about the mini rig, I think.
Yeah, one of the mini rigs. It's
One of the
that
mini,
green
that green
indoor
mini
speeder.
rig. Yeah,
Yeah.
the 4-string. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, very cool.
So it's like if I see something cool, I'll try to get it. But I always have I always end up having a price range in my head too. It's like I'll never go way over on something, even if it's something I want, because I know that I've seen some people bid incredible amounts in an auction to get something, and at the end of the day, you get that bill, and it's like, oh, I just spent $800 on this, and so you have to control yourself. You have to be able to go in knowing this is as much as I'm going to spend today. This is my play money, and this is as far as I'm going to go.
Right. You mentioned earlier that you had a bunch of boxed items as well. Do you ever get those graded?
I haven't, and mostly because it's the price. I mean, it's box items are quite pricey. Even the small ones are like $300 to grade by AFA. So if you get something like the Cobra Raven I have that's sealed and you have it graded, I think you're talking $400 or $500 to have it graded.
I see.
And also I worry, I'm just worried that if I send it there and they play with it and they're playing with it, what's the chances that the tape breaks, or what's the chances that they ding it, or the UPS guy drops it in the driveway? It's just I'd rather just have it here and I know it's protected than send it somewhere else for another trip through the mail for God knows what they do to it.
Yeah. And I know that you said earlier with the boxed items that you were really going for a toy store type of look. And obviously in a toy store, you're going to have boxed items. But at the same time, isn't there some sort of something in you that says, I want to see it put all together and all the pieces out and the decals on and do it that direction?
Yeah. Every once in a while I'll look at it and then I'll be like, no, that's dumb. Stop thinking that. But I do have a small collection of loose items that are on the floor. Like I have the Sky Striker, the Cobra Stun, the Hiss, some of the original stuff that I was able to pick up. So I can't like pick some of those up. And I do have a loose Joe complete collection. Not a lot, but enough where I can see them and remember what they look like when I was a kid, and those are dangerous to buy because they look great when you see them on TV or we see them on the screen, but when you get them, their O-ring is shot or their limbs are loose and they won't stand up. So, you got to know who you're buying from for that, because a lot of people have bought loose figures and got them in and they're like, this is not what I thought I was getting.
Sure. Yeah, that's especially with those G.I. Joe. I'm going to tell a story that I've never told, but Dennis brought something up and it reminded me of the story, and I always felt bad about it, but I feel 10 times worse about it now after talking to Dennis. But I've always been a open it up type of person. And it was usually when I was a kid, it was opened in the car before I even got home, which also meant that some of the accessories would get lost before I even got home, unfortunately. But that's just the way I was just motivated to open them and play with them and do that. I was with a buddy of mine when we were about 11 years old. I was living in Florida at the time, and we went to a store, and we each got a version 2 Snake Eyes. G.I. Joe Snake, I think it was like 1984, and there was 2 of them on the shelf. I got one, he got one. I opened mine up, played with it, really liked it, went to his house about a week later, and he still had it in the package. He hadn't opened it. And I asked him, I said, what are you doing? Why didn't you open it? And he's like, yeah, I just like the way it looks, just like this. I'm just going to, keep it sealed and just look at it. And I never understood that. And it ended up staying that way for a couple months, I would say. And one day I was at his house and he was out of the room, and I said, I'm going to open that thing up for him because he's got to play with it. And I opened up his version 2 Snake Eyes, and he got upset, right? Like rightly so. I had no idea it was worth $2,000 or $3,000 right now. So, now I really feel bad. So, Chris Key, I haven't talked to you in about 40 years, but I apologize if you're watching this.
So collectively, then you started collecting when you were 4 or 5 years old in the 1980s. For a few years, you got into your older years, college, marriage, and such. You kind of got out of it, and then started back up again in 2000s. I assume you've been collecting since.
Yeah, yeah. Like I started back again and it goes through peaks and valleys. Like sometimes you're just too busy. Like right now, I'm not really have bought anything in a while because I'm starting a new job. I'm working 10 hours a day. I got to come home. I live by myself, so I got to take care of the dog. I got to take care of the cat. I got to keep the house clean. So it's like I don't have time to sit and just watch a show to buy stuff. I just got too much to do. But then other times when you have slow time, it is like a hobby. It's something you jump into for relaxation, to be able to jump in and get stuff that you were thinking about. Or if things just kind of pop up out of nowhere, something that was in the back of your brain you really wanted, and then it pops up on a show and you're like, oh geez, that's what I wanted for the last 10 years. I want to see if I can get that.
Your display space and size, the number of rooms. I did see in some of the videos that you went from one room to another room. You also referred to another room. So, how widely spanned is the collection?
Well, there's this room which is the most of it. Like this is like the marquee stuff. In the TV room, that's where I have my Star Trek lithographs. I have the autograph plaques, and then I also have my sealed GI Joe classic collection in one section. And then the fireplace room, I put up some shelving against the back wall where I have some aliens collection and my some most of my Batman collection. And then there's a wall where the fireplace room and the kitchen just move directly into each other. And there's a wall that goes down that kind of separates it. So that's where I put all of my alien figures that I collected. And those aren't that old. They're from 93, but I was a huge alien fan as a kid. So to see those and know they were sealed, I bought a bunch of them. And I have all but one of the figures that was released in that line. And
So,
I
are we
and
talking Alien or Aliens?
It my personal favorite movie is Aliens, but in the 90s they made it was like a spin-off. So it's basically it has all the aliens figures, but they invented all these new alien types
Wow.
based on animals. And
Not
they're
just the
really neat
xenomorph,
to
but you
look
also
at.
get the other ones too. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
very interesting.
And those are bigger figures. Those aren't like 3.75, correct?
Yeah, those are like the 5 to 6 inch figures.
Okay.
They're bigger, they're bulkier. I mean, they take up more space for sure, but they fit really well. Figured out they fit really well in that corner on that little wall. It almost fits perfectly.
Nice.
Um,
Because for
good.
me, it has to be aesthetically pleasing. It has to be organized, or else it's just chaos. Because I know people that like have a room and they say it's a collectibles room, and there's just stuff everywhere. And I'm like,
Well,
that's
which brings me to a point. We did an episode a few months back with a fellow from Oklahoma by the name of Tracy Oxley. So I'm going to ask you the Tracy Oxley question. Any
okay.
collectibles on the walls in the bathroom?
No, no, the bathroom is the bathroom. I don't want anything, what goes on in the bathroom does not need a collectible at all. So those are clear.
Okay, okay. Because Tracy Oxley, I mean, even the bathroom, the towels and the shower curtain, I think it was just wall to wall from one time you walked in to the time you walked back out.
every room,
Yeah.
every kitchen. He would open the cabinets in his kitchen, and on the inside of the
Oh wow.
cabinet there was Star Wars figures.
Oh wow.
That's
I can't
crazy.
cover up everything. I just spent the last 5 years doing a total remodel of the house, so I want to see some of it for the money I spent.
So the manner of which you display your items, I can see the mint on cards in the back that appear to be pinned up against the wall. You have some stuff there on that LED cabinet there that's brightly lit. I don't see things suspended from the ceiling, but I do see things stacked, for lack of a better description.
Yeah, that's was what was going on is I was trying to those are a lot of my acrylic pieces and or vehicles, and I was trying to figure out a way to get them off the floor or put them in a layered stack. So I had a bunch of old speakers in storage. So I used the speakers and the speaker stands in order to set them up so I could layer all that stuff together to make it look cohesive.
Interesting. And then how about that shelving that you have that's lit up? Is that like custom shelving, or how did that work out?
Yeah, I had the same guy that did a lot of my remodel work in the rest of the house. When it came down to remodeling this room, is everything that you see in this room got taken out, and he replaced the flooring, he painted the walls, and he custom built those shelves and those cabinets and those lightings so that I could put all that stuff in there. And I already knew what I had to put in there, so we just kind of measured and figure out the width of where the shelves should be so we could stack in a certain way and make room at the bottom so you could do other things. So it was like a collaborative project. He had the skills, so I let him go with it, and I just gave him suggestions on what I wanted it to look like in the end.
Yeah, you had the vision, he had the
Right.
skills, and
The
there it
vision,
is.
the vision.
Yeah,
There you go. Yeah.
that's
So
awesome.
a lot of your display also I noticed was in different cabinets or bookshelves. There was one curio cabinet that stood out to me, if I recall.
That it was my mother's. She passed away in 2006, and I kept the cabinet. And so when I moved into this house, I because she had all of her. She was a collector too, but she collected like Dickens Village. I don't know if you remember that. Those little houses. She had several different collections. And so what happened is I took it and I figured, well, if she, at that time she has passed away, so I put it and I put some of my stuff in there. And what I have in there is mostly like the Rawcliffe Star Trek pewter stuff, which came out in the mid to late 90s. And so it fits really well in there. And I have some of the Franklin Mint pewter ships, which are a lot bigger. I mean, they're about the length of your hand, and they're heavy because they're just solid pewter. So I have some of those in there. And the other ones I have, the more rare ones I have out on display in the room on the bookcases, which you spoke of, because I mean they're just really so neatly detailed that I have all of them except for one, and I cannot find the Enterprise E to save my life. I've been looking for like 5 years to find it, and I cannot find it.
Hmm,
So Franklin Mint, I've heard that name referred to in the collectible realm. They have different series that they do for other things, but there seems to be a little bit slightly more elevated status with them. Yes, no?
Yeah, they're much more detailed. They have gold accents or like stone accents for like the deflector dishes or sensor arrays or like warp engines. So it's solid. It's just solid pewter, but it's accented with certain things that kind of make it just to brighten it up. And the size difference is amazing. If you put one of the smaller Rawcliffe ships next to a Franklin Mint ship, it would just look just minuscule.
hmm.
Interesting. Any of your displays illuminated or special illumination?
Just the closet right now. And that might be something I work on because the ones the display in the fireplace room I just put up a few months ago. I just got that like coordinated together where I have it where I want it. And the GI Joe classified collection I have is kind of stacked on the wall, and I'm trying to decide if I want to build or make shelving for it or leave it where it is. And once I make those decisions, then I can figure out if I want to put some lighting around it.
Hmm.
Your various displays, are they arranged in any particular manner? This is the prequels, this is the original trilogy, this is the ones blah 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 blah, or is it just what kind of fits?
I try to make it flow and make sense. So if you look around the room, like it starts with Star Trek origin or Star Wars original trilogy, and then the closet is like 90% Joe stuff. And then you turn to the next wall, and it's like vintage Star Wars vehicles that are out of the box, and then like modern day Star Wars TV show figures, like Mandalorian and Obi-Wan Kenobi and that kind of stuff. And then as you keep going to it, then it starts into Star Trek, and then the Star Trek ends, and then on the top of the wall you have my Batman the Animated Series figures that are mint on card, which is one of my favorite shows. Like in middle school, I watched Batman the Animated Series all the time, and to see that they were still those figures, I ended up buying them. And then you keep going, and then it's all the GI Joe mocks all put together. And then when you keep going, it's my Star Trek autograph uh, cards, like collector cards. They're all autographed by the actors,
Huh?
and
Well,
then that's in a section. And then when you finish off, it's like a potpourri of superhero figures that I just thought were cool, so I bought them.
I made a few notes based on some of the videos that I've seen, and I'd like to go through and ask a number of questions if I may here.
Oh, sure.
Um, so let's talk about, you mentioned just a moment ago, prints on the wall, as opposed to autograph pictures. You had some larger Star Trek prints.
Yeah, those are lithographs that I actually got at the Star Trek experience in Las Vegas. Back in the early 2000s, they had Star Trek rides, and it was a whole Vegas niche thing at the Hilton. And at the first time I went to Vegas, I went with a buddy of mine, and I went a whole bunch of money gambling. Like they lost everything, but I made all this money. So we went to the Star Trek experience and did the rides and stuff. We went to their gift shop, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll take this. And then the one that I have of Deep Space Nine, it was the last one they had, and it was already framed and everything. And they're like, well, it's our last one, so we don't know what to do with it. So it was originally $500, and I offered them $300, and they took it. And I got it because they just wanted to move on to something else, and so I got a really good deal on that. But it's like those are my one of my Vegas experience things where I look at it and it reminds me not only of my shows but of going to Vegas and having fun and a great memory.
That's what collecting is all about, in my opinion. It's not just what you're collecting, but also the memories of maybe when you bought it, the first time you saw it, the Vegas trip, whatever it is. That's the beauty of collecting right there.
Oh, absolutely.
The effort you put into seeking it out and getting it. Sometimes it's a struggle, sometimes it happened easily. I have many stories, and I've mentioned this before, that, and it's something I believe in, and that is a lot of times you'd be working towards one thing and it just doesn't happen, and you're so bummed out. But I've always found that the second time around, it's better.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes you get
Um,
sidetracked into something else and go down another
yeah,
rabbit
yeah,
hole of
yeah, yeah,
buying something
exactly.
else because you're tired of looking for one thing.
So, in addition to the prints on the wall, then there was a lot of framed autographs and some which had what appeared to be a label or some certification.
Yeah, most of those three there are three autograph crew plaques. One of the original crew, one of the next generation crew, and one of the Voyager crew. And they were released actually through QVC. So you would buy it from them and you got your certificate of authenticity, but also one of the actors would be there on the show because back then, everybody remembers QVC, they just sit there and they'd watch the show and they try to sell you stuff. And about every 3 or 4 months, they'd have a Star Trek show and they'd have a bunch of Star Trek autograph stuff. But usually, like the most stuff they were selling, one of the guys that signed it was always there saying, "Yeah, this I signed this, and this is how we did it." So you knew it was real.
Um, we've talked a little bit about Alien and Aliens, and there was quite a pretty big selection of Alien mint on card figures. I also
Mm-hmm.
saw a number of mint on card GI Joes.
Yeah.
Um, And then we talked briefly earlier about the sealed Imperial shuttle, Star Trek actors cards. Now that would be different than the group photo.
Yeah, they're trading cards.
Okay.
So what it was is they it was a collection of cards that a company released, and the thing was is they said, well, you have a 1 in 20 chance of getting a autograph card. And so, they were just randomly inserted. So what would happen is people would get them and then sell them on eBay. And I actually bought a lot of them there. I mean, my favorite ones, I've got a David Warner, and I've got a um, uh, uh, sorry, I gotta look, Christopher Plummer. And Christopher Plummer is one of my all-time favorite actors. I
Yeah,
think he was
yeah,
just
yeah,
amazing. And
yeah,
like to have his autograph, especially now that he is passed, is like a
yeah,
really
yeah.
a big asset to my
He
collection.
was in that one of the original Star Trek movie remakes, In Country, Out of Country, Out
Undiscovered Country.
Undiscovered Country. Oh, he did such an awesome
Yeah.
job in there.
Oh yeah. If you
Really
watch any
enjoyed
of
it.
his movies, you'll just like one of the best movies that people may not know. He was in the Disney movie Up, the animated show. He was the bad guy in that.
Is that the
And
balloon one with Ed Weiser? Ed Weiser?
yes, yes.
I don't remember the story well enough to say that I remember that guy. Bum, 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 bum. I did see a number of what appeared to be empty Star Wars boxes. Graded loose. Graded loose Star Wars. Oh, okay. Mandalorian, mint on card. And out of the wide collection of mint on card, I saw one in there that stood out to me. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was they probably referred to it as a prototype, where all the different pieces are a different color.
Yeah, that's a newer piece. They released a whole set of them.
Well, that was
But
where I was going with it because the same thing occurred with Boba Fett.
yes, yeah, they released. I have Boba Fett, the Mandalorian, Chewbacca, and Luke X-wing pilot. So they took the original molds and remade them and just pieced together different colors, so it looked like it was a figure that they were trying to figure out how it was supposed to
That
look
was
like.
the impression I got originally. But so, in addition to the Mandalorian and the Boba Fett, who else are they making these versions of?
It's not a whole lot. Like I said, I have Mandalorian, I have Boba Fett, I have the Stormtrooper, I have Luke, and I have Chewbacca.
So
And
those
they do
latter
make several
three.
more,
Oh,
but
okay.
they're not easy to find. I haven't found them.
Aha, aha, aha. And of course, then the follow-up question would be are you satisfied with just one of those prototype versions? Or did you have to buy all 6 or 7 of them?
No, I'm happy with one. I've only got so much wall space. I can't have 6 duplicates
The
on the
one can
wall.
represent that whole prototype realm.
Oh yeah, definitely. It,
Micro machines. I saw you had some micro machines.
Not a lot. I mean, just a few. I mean, it just depends if it's in the right genre. I think the micro machines that I have are like I think they're the Star Trek micro machines from the Wrath of Khan,
Ah.
and there's one from Star Trek 3. So you have like the Excelsior, the Bird of Prey, the Reliant, just like stuff from like the old 80s movies that are just like iconic ships that are just really neat to look at.
Jim, before you go on, I just wanted to ask Dennis, when you're talking modern Star Wars, I know that the prototype figures, that's part of like the retro collection line. Are you collecting more retro collection or is it the vintage collection that you're collecting?
It's vintage. I dabbled into the retro figures, and I think they're really well made. I think they're really neat, and I just realized I don't have room for them.
Okay.
Like what I have is what I have. It's like Black Series. A lot of them look really good, and I have several Black Series here and there. But I'm just like, you got to
It's
make a
too
choice what
big.
you can fit.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing about the Black Series is at least the boxes all kind of stack or sit next to each other real slick and nice.
Yeah, some of them do. Some of them actually have hang tags, which are nice, so
Mhm.
that you can display them on the wall and keep them in place, so they're you don't have to worry about. I don't have to worry about my cat knocking them over in the middle of the night.
Oh, cats do that just to knock stuff over, period.
Yeah.
You had some Batman and you referred to Batman. Which series Batman are you most interested in or collect?
Collecting, my favorite toy line from Batman is the toys from the animated series. I love the artwork of the animated series. There's been nothing like it. Even when they made it a few years later, they changed the artwork and it never looked the same. And so like if I just recently found a penguin from the animated series on Mock. It's not here yet, but I found that and I found that really cheap, and I'm still looking for Scarecrow. But other than that, I have like I collect mostly. If you look at my collection, for some reason I collect a lot of villains, like just the Batman villains, like the Empire from Star Wars, or Cobra from GI Joe. It's just those figures and those vehicles just look neater and brighter, And I don't get me wrong. I mean, Snake Eyes version 2 is my favorite figure, but he doesn't look like a traditional GI Joe figure. On the GI Joe line, he looks more dark.
So you mentioned that you're going to be either getting married or you're moving in with a girlfriend or she's moving in with you. Where does that put your collection?
Well, we're not there quite yet. I'm gonna say we're not there yet. Like I said, what the funny part is like when I had warned her about coming into the house. I had warned her to see. I sent her photos of like, okay, when you come over for the first time, this is what you're going to see.
I'm not a freak. I'm not
Yeah.
a freak.
I'm like, I'm going to prepare you, because if I don't have any smelling salts if you pass out walking in and seeing all this stuff. So, and we're still talking. We're not in the move-in phase yet. I mean, we're still dating, but she accepts what I'm doing and she accepts the collection. And if somewhere down the line something like that would ever change, I don't know if it will or not, then yeah, we'll have this. The room that I'm in will never change.
Okay.
But the other stuff might have to be rearranged or possibly put in storage at one point.
So going back a couple minutes here, Dennis was talking about the animated series, and that's for the Batman figures, and that's really where his focus is on that. Jim, I don't know if you know this, but Mark Hamill, the guy that plays Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, actually does the voice for the Joker in the animated series.
I kind of knew that. Wouldn't have noted until you brought it back up again, but I kind of heard that somewhere along the way.
So it just goes a little full circle there.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
So are you in a position where you're still expandable, or have you reached your capacity?
I am limited capacity right now, because if I buy something now, it's going to be something that I've really wanted for a long time at this point, unless something happens and if something came out, like if I found like a Cobra Stinger sealed in the box with everything, then I'd be like, oh, okay, I can make room for that. But if it's something else that I'm like, I've recently realized, I'm like, no, where am I going to put it? Where's it going to go? So I don't have room for it. No, let it go.
I love eBay, and every once in a while I'll get to a point. I have a strategy as far as, especially if you put up their make offer. So I have a strategy where I put it into the watch list, which usually somehow notifies the seller, or at least gives me credibility with the seller that I'm interested. And today I couldn't put anything in the watch list. Well, you know why? Because it's so full, it won't take anymore.
What? I didn't know there was a limit on that.
I had to go through and thin it out.
Wow.
The point is that I saw a lot of the things that are still sitting in the watch list. There was some Scooby-Doo things. There was some Johnny Quest things. Believe it or not, Snap, Crackle, and Pop. The little Funko Pop guys. So there was all these weird things in there. I have fallen into a new little genre of things I want to collect, and just to simply describe it in general, just call it frontiersman kind of stuff. One of which is a map. A large map. When you were in grade school, the teacher would go to the front and pull down this big map, and with her pointer would point out this and that. And so I bought the map only. It doesn't have the roller thing. And I'm trying to decide where to put it. And a friend of mine said, well, why don't you hang it above your sliding glass doors? That way, if you got to go out the door or want to look out the door, you just roll it up.
Hmm.
If you want to look at it, you pull it down. And I thought, well, okay, that's going in the right direction. But sitting there long enough in the living room, and the other struggle I've been having for the last month is I have this collection in the living room that has these three pictures behind it, and everything's got turquoise colors in it. So there's a unification. I was thinking about replacing with these nice fancy pictures, and it's like, no, I don't want to take it down. So how do you accommodate both interests?
Um, it's hard. It's like I've limited my interests. I'm like, there's stuff that I like I said, I would love to collect Transformers. I would love it. That's a great part of my childhood. But I'm not going to because I don't have a section to put them, and they would be in a section. I'm not going to just shove them where there's a space. I mean, I don't. I would. And who wouldn't want to have like the original Optimus Prime or Ultra Magnus or something like that? But I'm like, where would it go? And if I put it in the shed or in storage, I feel like I'm wasting it for someone else who really really wants it.
Yeah.
What I ended up doing was I have, we'll call them corbels, which are just decorative little corner pieces, but they would serve as a nice little shelf bracket. And so I mounted those on the wall and bought a curtain rod and then taped the map to it. And I put it over the top of the pictures on the wall that I couldn't take the pictures down. So I accomplished
Okay.
what my friend had suggested. That is, gives you the ability to, if you want to look at this or want to look at that. So I guess I'm kind of getting three-dimensional now in my hobby, where you're having to think. It's like Spock and his three-dimensional chess game, different layers and different. It's not just forward and backwards; it's up and down.
Wow.
One has to get clever.
Yeah. You're like, I've got a 5 inch by 5 inch space on the wall. What can I put there?
That's right. Fill it quick. I wanted to go back and also ask Dennis. You said that you recently bought a penguin figure. Where did you
Yes.
buy that? Where did you find him?
What is his name? Is Bob Taylor. He's got his own show on Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that where you're doing most of your shopping, is on Facebook and not eBay
Yeah.
these days? Okay.
Yeah, eBay. I haven't bought from eBay in a long time, and like I said, a lot of it is because you get to know these sellers, or you get to know this seller and this seller. You get to know the people that just come to the show every week,
Mhm.
and you're just it's like a friendship because not only do you talk on the show, but then you end up Facebook messaging each other, not just talking about your collection, but talking about what's going on in your life. Oh, you changed jobs. Is that going okay? Or oh, you got a new dog or whatever, da 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 da. And it's like it turns more into a friendship than it does just watching something to buy on an auction show.
That Facebook angle, I like it. I think I actually sold Dennis a few things via Facebook. I think that's how we first met.
I think so
sold
too.
some
Yeah.
concept figures from like 2007.
Oh yeah, they're right in the back. I put them because I separated them because the ones that I had they were the 30th anniversary re-release. They're the no new design of figures, and the ones that I really liked that you had were the Ralph McQuarrie.
That's right.
Concept figures because they're so different, and I've never seen anything like them. So they actually went into the back with my vintage collection. Oh, cool. Because they just really look good. And the other ones I bought are on the wall with the other 30th anniversary figures that I've collected over time that I found.
Okay.
And they're not that easy to find. It's surprisingly like to find them. I mean, they're not really expensive, but to find them on card where they're in good condition is not as easy as I thought it would be.
Sure. Luckily, I have all mine in pretty pristine conditions.
Yes, I was very impressed when I opened up the box. I think I sent you a photo and I said thank you, and I said I appreciate this.
I'm so happy that they went to a collector and not some reseller or something. So that makes me happy as a seller to do that.
You had mentioned toy store earlier. Do you shop at toy stores or just sell back to toy stores?
Like toy stores, like modern toy stores, I don't buy modern toys at toy stores anymore. When I was younger, when I got rid of my original collection, I went to a comic book store or, vintage comic book / vintage toy store. and I sold them a great deal of my stuff because I was moving in with somebody and we just didn't have the room. So it was a quick, easy way. Do I regret it a little bit? Yes and no, because it was all used stuff. It wasn't, it was stuff that I played with. So it was not in the most pristine collection. But, every once in a while I think, oh, I wonder where they are now because, some I sold on eBay too. So I always wonder if there's something stuff that I've sold on there that just comes back around with somebody else selling them.
I guess my question more specifically was when looking for new things, you're in this case Facebook, you used to do some stuff on eBay. Do you ever consider going to not toy store as in Toys R Us, but call it your vintage toy store as a potential place of acquiring stuff?
I've gone to a few. Around here, they're not that great. Like I've seen that on the East Coast and the West Coast, there's they have these grand collections and these real nice setup of vintage stuff, but there's not a lot of it around where I live.
Okay.
And like the vintage stuff, selling stuff vintage here in the Midwest, especially in my area, it's not as big as it is in other areas of the country.
And which brings to the next question, toy conventions or toy shows in your area?
There are. The funnest part is if you can get to like a Comic Con or Comic Con esque event. Like I think it's Comic Pro they have it once a year in Indianapolis. I've gone like 2 years in a row, and that's always fun to go to. It's huge. There's vendors everywhere, and they're selling stuff from all over the place, and they have you can go and you can get autographs from actors, or they actually have speaking engagements where they're scheduled to speak, and they're a lot of fun. You can make a whole day or a whole weekend out of just going and just looking around. It's like a vacation.
What about garage sales or yard sales?
I just don't have the time. Like the thought of taking my whole Saturday, if I have a Saturday off and driving from house to house to house, hoping to find something, I'm like, it's not worth it to me. Some people do it and some people make a lot of money, just finding stuff in garage sales. But I just like, I hate to say it. I don't have enough time to like want to
Certainly, time
engage in
time
that.
is one of the issues, and depending upon where you're at. Here in LA, I think Facebook is the worst place to be buying stuff, only because
Mm,
there's so many waste of time people. Is it still available? And then the conversation goes no further. Why did you send that message? Because it's a little thing you can click on. You can click on. Um,
yeah.
but so I don't like Facebook Marketplace at all. Again, I like eBay a lot. There are those who have the yard sales, but I think you have to be up at the crack of dawn, or at least certainly when they bring the stuff out there to get the good stuff, because there's so many people here in LA that are all looking for the same kind of good stuff.
Yeah, and you get to bigger market areas, and there's so many people just looking around to try to find that stuff. And
Everybody
to
wants
me,
to
it
be
would
an
be,
American picker and they want to get all the good stuff.
oh yeah,
I left the house today to go do to drop some fish food off for a customer, and that was about 11 o'clock. And I drove down the road, and one of the houses down there's got a whole bunch of stuff out in the driveway having a yard sale. And I thought, oh, should kind of just pull over, but to have to scan through all of the overgrown little kids' toy or outfits to find maybe that one hot item, and then who am I to know what's considered unique, hot, or whatever? To me, it's whatever interests me, as opposed to, oh, that's really a steal, a real valuable thing. But I was just curious if you ever did the yard sale or the uh, lawn sale or house sale or whatever you call it.
Garage sale. Yeah.
Garage
Now it
sale.
sounds like he's primarily Facebook at this point.
yeah. And the one thing is, it's like with selling and stuff. What I think is like I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and she sells on Facebook forum site, and she primarily does girls' toys. And she's like, well, this is my niche. She says, but I want to expand. And then she bought some stuff and then she showed them to me. She sent pictures of me and she said, I spent this amount of money on it. And I'm looking at the pictures and I'm like, oh no, that's not what you want. But it's like, that's why I like you stick to your niche because there's so much stuff. There's so many things that different people collect that no one's going to know all of it.
Right.
And if you think you do, you don't. So it's like if you really like something and if you got a set like bubble of what you're interested in, focus on that, because that way you know what you're buying, you know what you're selling, you know what it's worth. It's not like you're, it's like, like with some people, it's like, they buy like Rainbow Bright or Strawberry Shortcake and they're going to resell it. I'd be like, if I bought something like that, I'd have no idea what it was worth. It's not worth my time, because I'm like, I could buy it for $2 and it's worth 500, or I could spend 100 and it's worth $2. I don't know.
You had alluded to something twice now in our interview, and it brings me to a question. And what you alluded to was you prepared your girlfriend for your collection, which that's the first person we've talked to I've ever heard say that. But it's something that stood out in your mind that you felt you needed to do, whether because the display was so overwhelming or who knows. But the question that comes up now that I preface that is, would you consider yourself from a collecting standpoint as obsessive, compulsive, budgeted, under control, out of control?
I am controlled and budgeted. The only time, like if I am having a life changing event, then I will find myself buying more than I normally will. So there is that thing. It's like if I'm really, really upset or something's really going on, then I will lean more into that collecting thing. But
Interesting, interesting. So it's a little bit of an escape, maybe, or some way of diverting whatever is bothering you at the moment.
yeah, I would say it's an escape, because you can go into this place. It's a safe place, and I don't spend a fortune, but I'll buy more if I'm depressed, or if I'm having a depressing couple of weeks. I'll be like, oh Lord, there's a lot more boxes here than there were. Whereas
Interesting,
I can go three
interesting,
months and get maybe
interesting.
one or two things. So
Um,
it is a little bit emotionally connected, I think, in my
Interesting.
mind. And I don't know if that's like most people or not, whether they're steady or always steady, or always out of control, or always conservative. But that's just how I find myself being.
That's interesting you say that, because I found myself a little stressed out here over the last couple of weeks with work, but um, uh, after I did my bank deposit today, I felt more confident about going on eBay and looking around for stuff. Is there a relationship there? Maybe so. I don't know. Who sees your collection?
Just close friends and family. The friends that I have met over, through my Facebook forums, they've seen pictures and photographs of it, and we talk about it, and they send me photos of their collections, but that's kind of like, you don't do that after you've actually talked to that person a while and you've built a relationship. It's just not, you don't usually just say, oh, here's everything I have. Then it also depends on who's interested. I have a lot of friends that just don't give a darn what I have in my house, because they don't understand it. So
And
it
that
just it just depends.
would have been my next question. What do those people, in this case, those who are familiar with collecting and those who are not so much familiar with collecting, what do they have to say?
I actually talked to a friend of mine who lives in Cal. He moved out to California, and we were friends as children. And we were started talking again, and I sent him photos of my collection, and he's like, "Oh my God!" He's like, "It's really cool, but it's really big though."
So I'm just curious, Dennis, out of everything that you have, when people come and they see your collection, is there like a showcase item, a favorite item that you have that you tell people you have to see this?
My favorite item. Well, I have two favorite items now. One has always been Snake Eyes version 2 in the package. I love that one. But a close second now is I have the Cobra Raven sealed in the packaging, and it's such a neat. It's like one of the neatest vehicles that GI Joe have ever made, because it looks like a Black Hawk,
That's right.
or the old the supersonic jet. It's like dead up for it, and it's just so neat. And one thing I'd like to get one day, and if I ever pops up, I don't know if I have to say no, is the Cobra Rattler.
The Rattler. Yeah, right.
In the box,
Almost
because
like the
it's like
Harrier.
it's the reversion of the old A-10
Right. Yeah.
fighter jet. So very cool item.
And Jim, go ahead and just finish this off.
What is your favorite movie or series?
My favorite TV series is Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Oh boy, then just been I can watch that if I had nothing to watch, I could put an episode of that on and watch it. Movie wise is a very tough call because I do like Star Trek, I do love Star Wars, I love Aliens, but I also like dramas. I love Ghostbusters. It's just there's so many different genres of movies. It's hard to pick up just one.
And even harder to come up with one particular character.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, well, my favorite TV character has always been, even though I like Deep Space Nine more, Picard is like the best captain ever.
Very cool. Very cool.
Interesting.
What advice would you pass along or give to new collectors?
Figure out what you want. Figure out what your niche is. Like, if you have an impulse buy, but figure out like if you're really interested in vintage Star Wars, or you're really interested in G.I. Joe, figure out where you want to go with that because there's so many different things. There's vintage, there's the 12-inch that you collected. There's the new stuff that's coming out. It's just like you just play with it, but if you want one single focus, just try to figure out what it is and just explore it and have fun with it. And that's the biggest thing is if you're having fun with it, there's nothing wrong with it because it's your hobby and you do with it what you want.
Fantastic.
100%.
Great information. Dennis, thank you very much for sharing your collection with us. Looks like a great collection of a number of different items. Very impressive. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for having me. I've had a lot of fun.
And before we actually break, I just want to tell all the people out there on YouTube, if you've made it this far in the interview, go ahead and like this interview. Obviously, there's something that you like about this. And subscribe too. Our subscriber count just keeps going up week by week, week by week. It's going up. Make it another person. We go ahead and subscribe. We'll get more people. Dennis, again, thank you very much. I usually say at this point, may the force be with you, but I also say live long and prosper as well.
Thank you very much. Hey, we'll talk soon, I'm sure. You have a great night.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hello. Come on into my collection.
That's one less rebel.